This fall, Pastor Tate was put on leave by the board when rumors and allegations began to grow, and the board believed we needed to have Albert step away for a season so that the board, staff, and congregation could take a deep breath and try to understand what was happening on different fronts. Before and during this time of leave, various issues and complaints were raised about Pastor Albert, the board, and the culture of the staff. And to put some clarity on that, the same thing that was confessed to the entire congregation was also confessed before that to the staff by Albert and Marosa together. Subsequently, we had a number of questions and issues that were brought up by the staff that we were coming to answer in a staff meeting. And another allegation was brought up in that staff meeting, unexpectedly brought up in that staff meeting. At that point, we had not put Pastor Albert on leave. But that allegation was one that would have crossed into a place that we were not willing to go. It was not a private matter between Albert and his family and someone way outside of here. It was a potential matter inside. Within an hour of that, we stopped the meeting, did not have a long Q&A meeting, and turned that into a meeting where staff was able to voice all their concerns, and even were asked to, if they had any major concerns or complaints that they had not put in, they ought to do it then. That allegation was one that was investigated by Lotta, our HR department, along with some help from Dorothy Hammond, who's on our board, who's an HR professional at Netflix, as you guys know. That was cleared, meaning that what was there was not something that was substantive and was not something that actually, in the context it was given, led us to any conclusion that any sexual impropriety or anything wrong had actually happened between a pastor and a member. We can go to our HR professionals and legal about all that. Suffice it to say, that was clear. The issues that came up from subsequently from that meeting were actual staff members who went to HR, now feeling that they were empowered to do so, and I'm glad that they did, to say, here are things that we were concerned about. And that made us feel uncomfortable. And given that the conduct that we're in, we have to take everything seriously. By the way, that mere allegation that was actually cleared, that allegation, once we got an allegation that could involve power or someone actually here in the congregation, we put Pastor Albert on leave immediately, like an hour later. That was what triggered his leave. It would not have happened had it not been something that actually was falling into that quagmire, if you will. In the meantime, we got subsequent complaints from members of the staff. And their complaints, generally speaking, were around a climate that felt to them a little bit loose. And I don't mean loose in kind of like a loosey-goosey way. There are the climate people here who were there and around all of this. But essentially a climate where people were speaking in open meetings, not in someone's office, not in small spaces, in open meetings with all the staff on them. And things were said that some people might find funny and other people might find completely inappropriate. And that's fair. And the folks who found them inappropriate made complaints about them.
And it was just one person.
Yeah. Okay, it was one person, I think, representing 2 or 3. Once those were in, both Dorothy and Lotta spoke to all 3 of the people. And what they came down to was they were valid complaints. The one thing I want to clear up in this meeting is that none of them and what was complained about did not rise to the level of sexual harassment. There's been no evidence of sexual harassment by definition. There have been no people who have been put in a position where their job was in some way put in jeopardy because of sexual favors or something they would or would not do. There's no one whose compensation was affected by something they would or would not do physically, sexually, we haven't had any complaints or any kinds of testimony about that at all. If you'd like to just speak to what was said or what have you, I'd like for you to speak about that.
Yeah, first of all, sexual harassment is a really, really big deal. And unfortunately, we live in a world that to even be accused of it, there's an assumed guilt associated. That's something we take very seriously here at Fellowship, and that has never been a part of our culture. And I have never sexually harassed anyone. And that was vetted, litigated, and there's no evidence of that. So when that's printed and passed around and posted as though it's truth, it's devastating. And to work at an organization, confidentiality is a really big deal. You can't go to your job and then go to a post and post what's going on your job about your boss publicly. And it's not, so when we participate in this stuff, I'm having to have a conversation and explain why daddy's being accused of sexual harassment and why that's not true, never has been true, and it's sinful for that to be perpetuated over and over and over again on my character. What I did do was I confessed what I confessed to, and that was terrible, and I had to have that conversation as well. But this has not been a place where people have been sexually harassed. That is not. Now, we young, we got marriage ministry, we talk about marriage, we talk about kids, we talk about all kinds of crazy stuff, and we gotta recognize this is a place where people work, so we gotta tighten it up a little bit. So even when he says loosey-goosey, I don't know, it's not loosey-goosey like inappropriate, like our kids could be in the room, our children could be in the room, a 3-year-old could be in the room, and it's not that kind of inappropriate. What I've learned is, Albert, shut up. Create these spaces, make them more tight, make them more sacred. What's funny to somebody could be offensive to somebody else, and that matters. And I don't want anyone to feel like they're at risk of being offended if I'm in the room. So that's not the goal at all. So I take it very seriously, and we got to tighten up our culture, but it was never a culture where people felt inappropriate, sexualized like that. Or if someone acknowledged it, it got dealt with immediately and got cleared up if there was anything inappropriate like that going on. So I want to give you enough information for you to know what it's not, but not breaking any HR confidentiality things. But whenever you see sexual harassment, that is not true. And just because it's printed on the internet does not mean it's true. And just because it's cut up on a video and posted and clipped, like film stuff gonna be here today, just because you're watching this does not mean sexual harassment is true and it's gone on in our culture. So I just want to be 100% clear with that, because that suspicion has now got to ride over me for a very long time.
Good stuff. No, I'm good.
Okay. The board's Quickly, the board's response to this issue. After concluding careful reviews, the board has concluded its assessment of relevant facts and concerns, including the original texting. Any line of concern or questioning regarding that or other matters have been pursued with diligence and honesty by the board for the sake of fellowship. While Pastor Albert has issues in his leadership and style, we did not find reasons that disqualified him to continue to serve as our pastor.